Hi everybody, it's Jesse from Local Matters. How are you? I run the Growing Matters program, and we connect people to growing their own food in all sorts of different ways through learning gardens and community gardens and workshops and classes. And today we're going to do a video all about starting your own garden, okay? Really excited to share some stuff here today. All right, but first of all, I want to start off by looking at the seedlings that we started last week, okay? And I'm happy to say that they sprouted, yay. That would be really horrible if they didn't sprout, right? Now, we started kale and collards and mustard greens and got quite a few sprouts here. When I took my humidity dome off a few days ago, when I noticed that they had sprouted, I had a little bit of mold on my soil, okay? And you might be experiencing the same thing. And if that's the case, you just basically, your soil's a little bit too wet. It's not a big deal. What you can do is you can take all of the cell trays out like this, and then you can basically just dump the water out wherever you want to dump it. Put them back in, making sure that they still get 6 to 8 hours of sun, right? And make sure they're getting lots of sunlight, keep them happy and growing. And make sure they don't get too dried out. They still have to stay rather moist, okay? That should help with your mold issue. That should go away. And if not, you might also want to run a fan on it. That's a really great option, just to run a fan on it for a few days. But like I said, don't let them dry out too much. All right. Now, I want to start off by talking about why in the world would we want to grow our own food, okay? Right now is especially a really important time to grow your own food. Things like the victory gardens of 100 years ago are coming back into prevalence because people can see that food access is a really big issue. And if you grow your own food, it's going to be really super fresh and readily available at your own home, okay? So it's also going to be nutrient rich, really inexpensive, and a really healthy, fun activity for you and your family. All right? And there's a story I like to tell that goes along with that. Years ago, when my oldest son was only 3 or 4, I had grown some eggplant, and I just cooked it and was getting ready to take it to the table. And, you know, at the time, Jack really only liked to eat things like peanut butter and bread and chicken. And, you know, we were always trying to get him to eat more stuff, but it wasn't really his thing, you know. So we're always trying to encourage him to. But on this day, he grabbed a piece of eggplant off that plate and he took a bite out of it, and he was clearly enjoying it. And I said, Jack, what do you think? He said, good chicken. So, yeah, I love that story because it just shows that if you have a greater variety of foods around your house, a greater variety of fruits and vegetables, your kids will try them and they will enjoy them, okay? So that's one of the big benefits of having a garden. You can have all sorts of different stuff that you grow and you know, get your kids exposed to, and any of your family members for that matter. Okay, so let's talk about starting a garden. Or even if you already have a garden, what do you do right now? So the first thing you want to do if you already have a garden is to clean up any debris that might be in there. Okay, get rid of any old plants that you never got rid of, as long as they're annuals. The perennials, of course, come back every year, so you don't want to rip those out. But you want to get rid of those, and you want to clean out any debris that might still be there. And then you want to add some organic matter to your garden. So by that I mean like soil with peat moss in it, or with manure in it, you know, that's seasoned, of course. You can't have new manure in there, but you want to get some good compost and some good topsoil in there, all right? My wife let the chickens out, and I meant to put them away, but I didn't, so it's all good. We'll just go with it. All right, so like I said, you want to amend the soil, and you know, the next big question is, you know, let's say you don't have a garden, for instance. How do you want to garden? There's several different ways you can do it. You can do a container garden, you can do an in-ground garden, or you can do a raised bed, or just a couple of the ways you can do it. Let's talk about a container garden first. If you don't have a lot of space, it's a great option to have a container garden, of course, right? If you just have a little patio, or like, let's say a little porch that gets good sun, you could do it that way. You could grow anything in a container. The only question is, how big will it be when it falls out of the container? If it's something that's vining, you're of course going to have to think about something, you know, that you can trellis it on, like, you know, cucumbers, let's say, or watermelons. You could still grow that in a container, but they're going to have to go out and trellis in something, or go on the ground. You know, you can grow tomatoes and basil. You can grow all sorts of things. You just have to make sure that your container has drainage, a drainage hole in it, and you can't let it dry out too much. The real problem with containers is they dry out really quickly. All right, you could also do in-ground beds, which by that I mean if you have a big yard, you can just get rid of your grass and you can grow food right there in your yard, okay? You want to make sure that your site doesn't have standing water, and you want to make sure, of course, that it gets 6 to 8 hours of direct sun. But then other than that, you're just going to want to turn your soil real lightly and add some amendments to your soil, like what I talked about before, like organic matter, like leaves, like peat moss, like manure to your soil, okay? And then the real downfall with that one, with in-ground, is all the weeds that you're going to deal with. You don't know what kind of weeds are under the surface that might pop up. You also don't know what kind of soil you're dealing with. So that's a little bit of a pitfall with that as well. It's almost a good idea to get a soil test. You can get those from OSU Extension. You can call them and they'll send you one, and you can test your soil. That's a pretty simple process, and see what you need to add to it, okay? The final one is raised beds, okay? And we're going to talk a lot about raised beds today. So the big benefit with a raised bed is that you bring your own soil to it. You can select where you want to put it. Of course, all the stipulations still apply. Things like 6 to 8 hours of sun. You want to make sure it's not in a low spot so water isn't standing there. But raised beds are a really great option, okay? Today I built 5 raised beds that I'm going to put in my front yard. Me and my wife have been talking about doing this for a while, so I thought this would be a great chance just to go ahead and do it. We have a garden in the back, but we have pets that tend to get into the garden and mess around in the garden, and then the kids play a lot of sports, and so the balls are going into the garden. So it just seems like it'd be a better use of our space to do it out front, where we don't really do that much stuff anyhow, okay? So I have 4 4x4 beds, and I have a 2x2 bed. So we're going to put them kind of in a square shape together. You of course want to make sure that you have a walking path in between all of them. And one of the big things with raised beds is the general rule of thumb is you don't want to make it any wider than 4 feet. And the reasoning behind that is so you can reach in 2 feet on each side and get access. Because one of the things about a raised bed is you don't want to have to walk in it at all, because then you'll just compact the soil, and that is, that's not ideal, okay? There are a couple tools you're going to need if you're going to want to build a raised bed. There's some supplies that you'll need. You can get lumber from any of the different hardware stores if you choose to do it this way. You can use a bunch of different types of wood. I choose pine because it's inexpensive, but it only lasts from like 3 to 5 years, so you'll have to replace it, okay? If you have a big budget for a garden, cedar is your best choice. That weathers really well. It lasts a long time. But I chose pine. I bought a bunch of 12-foot boards that are 1 inch thick and 6 inches wide, and cut them up into sections of 4 feet and 2 feet, and then drill them all together. You're going to need some sort of a drill or an impact driver like this. You're going to need a measuring tape, of course. You're going to need some deck screws. I like Star Drive, but you can choose whatever you like. Star Drive just doesn't, they don't strip out as easy. And then you're going to need some sort of a handsaw. And make sure to use, safety practices. Use, eye protection and ear protection and all that good stuff. Okay, and I'll see you out in the garden. Hello again. All right, we're out in my front yard right now, and we've went ahead and placed all the beds in place. So we've got 4 beds that are 4x4s and 1 that's a 2x2. And you'll notice right here that I reinforced the corners with a 2x4 so that you can actually drill into the sides, not as close, because if wood like this, if you put this on top of this and drill in, you're going to split the wood and the bed's not going to last as long, okay? So you want to go ahead and reinforce the corners that way. That's going to, you're going to have a sturdier bed that way, okay? So one thing you want to think about when you're doing this, of course, like we talked about before, is site selection. So you want to make sure you don't have any standing water. That's not an issue out here. You want to make sure you get 6 to 8 hours of sun every day, okay? And this is the south right here. South facing sun is the strongest, okay? but the sun, of course, rises in the east, and it comes over here, and we get plenty of morning to midday sun right here in the front yard, okay? So that's not an issue. I also have a water source right here on the front of my house, so you don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about that. That's something you need to think about is, how are you going to water it? You don't want to have to worry about carrying the water really far. That can be kind of a pain, okay? And then, once we plant these beds, we're going to think about plant families and crop rotation. So we'll plant greens together, we'll plant nightshades together, we'll plant things like cucurbits, which are like vining plants, like zucchinis and cucumbers together, and then maybe some onions or such. There's lots of other stuff we can plant, of course. And I went and I got bulk soil at a half a cubic yard. I think that'll fill these beds. That's a luxury that I have because of this truck. You might need to get bagged soil. And then, once we put all this soil in here, I'll go ahead and put some organic fertilizer around the plants. And then I'll put some straw around it too, because I like to use straw as a mulch to keep weeds down, okay? So me and Dylan are gonna start filling up one of the beds. Dylan, you wanna come help me? Come on, buddy. All right, so we're just gonna start filling these beds up here. Let me help you out here. Help me, wait for me, okay? I did one. Oh, nice work. All right, come on over. Toss it in there. You get in there? Nice little ceremonial shoveling. Very nice work. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and fill it up a little bit, Dylan. Okay? And then once I get it kind of full, then I can get you a rake and you can make it nice and level. Okay? You like having your own gardening tool? You like that shovel? Yeah, man. What do you want to grow in this garden, Dee? What do you think? What about cucumbers? You like cucumbers?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Let's do that one.
Let's do cucumbers?
Yeah.
Okay. What about, you like potatoes?
Yeah.
Awesome. I like potatoes too. What about carrots?
Ooh, how about...
What do you think? You want long, skinny carrots or short, fat carrots?
Carrots.
Short, fat carrots? All right, very cool. Sounds good. All right. Well, thanks for being here, guys. Happy gardening, everybody. I will see you next week.